Hi everybody, OreDerp here, and today we are all technically robots. So the basic story relies on how our brain works. This is going to be a bit complicated, so stick with me here. In the 90s, computer programmers had designed a system that allowed for computer logic to be arranged in a similar way to how our brain works. It was called neural networking. At the time, nobody thought it held any water. People just believed it was a more complicated way to do if-else statements. For those who are unaware, if-else statements are an operation in computer code that states that something is true, do this, however, if it is false, then do another thing. Basic idea of neural networking is that there are neurons which each hold certain values. They each hold a slope, a bias, and a current value. Then there were synapses which connected the input neurons and fed the data into the output neurons. Output neurons would add all the numbers being fed to them by the synapses together, and then multiply it by the slope, which is then added to the bias. There's a lot of Algebra 2 level math that goes into this. I'll put the equation out there for the more math savvy, but you don't have to understand it. All you need to understand is that the neurons would feed data in, and according to certain numbers, there would be a certain output that would result in something. However, later somebody suggested that there be more than just 2 levels of neurons. More neurons for more computations. This invented deep learning. Deep learning combined video recognition, or the ability for a computer to recognize things inside a picture or video, auditory recognition, or the ability to recognize words spoken out of an audio file, and machine learning, where computers could learn off of things that happen, like in data. This was an outstanding innovation that led to modern AI. What most people don't realize is this is actually how brains work. Pretty much exactly. Usually using numbers, information is transferred from one neuron to the next and then summed up and altered. There's no difference between our intelligence and artificial intelligence. Then the randomness of the brain comes into debate. How do people do things that are seemingly random if they are just robots? It was that exact question that puzzled psychologist Kurt Lewin long before neural networking existed, and even before most people even knew about computers. He figured out that behavior is dependent on personality and environment. The basis is what you do depends on one's personality. One's personality, as described by George Kelly, another psychologist, is built up by past events. Personal construction theory states that personality works similar to a tower. There's a foundation, which gives way to the first floor, then the second, then the third, and so on. Each one of the floors being based on past events. Environment would be what is happening at the time. The environment could be who one is with, what situation one is in, and so on. The brain will mix and match personality and environment to figure out what to do in a certain moment. There's no randomness to it at all. There's also the question about consciousness. I'll make this one short because this would take a whole video to explain fully. The basic idea of consciousness is how we are able to recognize and live the world, rather than just simply existing and blindly going about our life. We don't have an answer to this yet, however, what I personally believe is that everything has a consciousness. Just only things that have brains are able to use the consciousness and be aware of their own existence. We will probably never know, but robots that we build could also have a consciousness, and they could be aware of their own existence. There are already robots that are aware of their existence. I think that they could very much have a consciousness, and that by giving objects ability to use a mind, artificial intelligence could be just like us. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you have a suggestion for a video for me to do, make sure to put it in the comments. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to be alerted whenever I post a video. Alright, sayonara.